Hey guys, Darren Kelly, coach of Wildlish Pods, and welcome back to another captain's episode heading into round 8. And it's deeming to be a pretty tricky round coming into round 8 now, with a few different options heading our way. As of time of recording, we've got the news out now that Oliver is going to be out. So that obviously shakes up a few trades that a lot of people were doing, whether we hold him, whether we fold him. Um, I'm still undecided what I want to do. Looking at my trades, obviously having Bergman, I can't seem to make it work to get to obviously another premium. Obviously Bergman's too cheap to be able to just sideways him to another decent player, and Oliver isn't that expensive that it's an easy downgrade to anyone in that potential round. So I'm thinking if I do trade him, then it's obviously down to a mid price, and maybe that's a Huss wait for 3 weeks, and hopefully he can hold his spot then on. I still really want to target Sheasel. I'm pretty terrified what he could potentially do this week, but we're not here to talk about trades. That is definitely another thing, but in my opinion, it really is team dependent whether you hold him or you fold him. If you can make it work and you trade him, then absolutely do that, because at the end of the day, he does have a pretty tough run coming up. So I don't think it's going to hurt you by not having him in the next couple of weeks. He was probably going on his buy anyways, which was the later buy, which would have been nice. But yeah, for sure, I don't mind jumping off of him, but I also don't mind if you can't make it work, then you can hold on to him this week, because will be back next week, as far as we're aware, unless there's some other underlining issue that we don't know is happening. There's always that potential, but as far as we know, he's just ill and he's going to miss this game, which is unfortunate, because yeah, we were looking for a bit of a bounce back game from him against West Coast. But on to captains. So last week we did a little bit better. Picked the number one captain in Max Gorn at number one after it was a bit of a curse for 2 or 3 weeks there. But yeah, the only one that really let me down there was John Newcomb at the 91. Would be at least nice to have all my top 5 captains go 100 for once. So fingers crossed that can be this week. But overall, we're not traveling too bad, but definitely not the flashiest as what I could be. So definitely looking to improve there. So let's move on to this week. Who is my number one captain this week? And I don't think there's any surprise that it is the man of the hour, that is Max Gorn, if he is up against Matt Flynn. As long as Matt Flynn is named and he does not have, Bailey Williams coming up alongside him, then I'll be captaining Max Gorn, and it'll be a pretty high line for my VC. So I think it's a walk up 130 if he's up against Matt Flynn, because he probably gets at least 60 hit outs, I would say. Lloyd Meek got 58 against him last week. So I'm at least expecting 50. Hopefully he can hopefully he can hit 60s, and then he really only needs to get a few marks, get a few tackles, and a few other handballs and disposals and things like that, and he'll be well on his way to 130. So for those reasons, he is definitely my number one captain, and I highly recommend anyone that has him to captain him in that matchup. That is by far the easiest, and obviously West Coast, they love to give up a fair few points anyways. However, he hasn't had the best record against them in the past. Like, he's played against them 2 times last year, and he scored just a 71 and the 86. Again, that was against Bailey Williams and not Matt Flynn, so very different ruck setup. But yeah, you'd still think Bailey Williams is still a quite an easy matchup in the end. They just really had a game plan coming into attacking him every single time and not allowing him to get the ball drop. So there's always the potential that he may get a bit of attention and not hit the ceiling that we're looking for, but I'm pretty confident that he will. I will say that 71 that he scored late last year was also injured. I think he sat the most of the last quarter out. I can't remember exactly the injury, but yeah, he definitely sat out the last quarter of the game. So maybe that would have been a 90, if not close to a ton at that stage. So he is my number one captain. At number 2 is probably a little bit of a surprise, but it is Harry Sheasel. I just think with all the controversy that is happening around him at the moment, with Kane Corns going at him, and obviously all the media drama that's going on with that, I think he's just going to absolutely blow it away this weekend, especially because he's playing down halfback, which seems to be all but confirmed now. We know he can cruise at 120, 125 in that halfback role, up against Essendon, who have been giving up a huge amount of marks recently as well. I think it's just a dream match made in heaven that he is just going to go absolutely big. So I'm pretty confident that he'll be my VC this week and for tonight's game. So fingers crossed he goes well. He went 119 against Essendon last year as well, so he does have a pretty good record against them. So looking for a very big ceiling score, probably his season high for the year. So in this game, so yeah, I'm pretty keen to get on top of that one. Number 3 comes at no surprise, and it's probably the likes of Andy Brayshaw. Actually, no, I'm going to change that because I just remembered that he has a potential Windhager tag. So I'm just going to mitigate that a little bit and I'll move him down a couple spots. But I will go with Zach Merritt at number 3, obviously against North Melbourne. Now, North Melbourne for the first part of the year have been pretty tricky. But in the last 2 or 3 weeks, they have been giving up a few easier points. So I just think Zach Merritt is probably due for a pretty big one. So I'm backing him in to be a consistent captain. So I wouldn't mind him there as a VC option tonight as well. I should have said off the top, I think most captain solutions are going to be solved by Friday night. You know, there's so many VC options tonight in North Melbourne versus Essendon, whether it's a Merritt or a Sheasel or a Cherry, who I'll speak about in a minute. Or then you go to the Melbourne and Freo game, you've either got an Eddie Brayshaw on one side or you got the likes of a Marshall one side, a Merritt, what's his name? McRae could also be there. Yeah, besides that, you're waiting to a Gore. So, yeah, there's plenty of options early on days. But Merritt, he didn't have the best record against the likes of North Melbourne last year. He had just the 78. Not too sure what happened there, but I just think, yeah, Merritt's such an easy captain option each and every week. He's pretty solid at just getting hundreds. And, yeah, fingers crossed he can get a pretty decent ceiling score there against North Melbourne. Number 4, I have got Tristan Cherry tonight up against Goldstein. I think he works him over. The only reason I have him a little bit lower than what I probably would have thought is because looking at the stats from last week, neither of the ruckmen had hit tackles. So it just doesn't seem like Goldstein's going to possess the ball to be tackled. I think, if anything, he's just going to hit it out and run. So I don't think Cherry's going to get the tackle numbers that we sort of expect. And Goldstein's still a fairly decent ruckman in terms of hit-outs. Like, he's not an easy walkover. I do expect Cherry to win the hit-out battle, but I don't expect much. Like, Darcy Cameron lost the hit-out battle last week against Goldstein by 2 hit-outs, but it's still, you take it. So I'm expecting Tristan Cherry to have a decent one, but it may be only a solid 110, not this 120, 130. We're sort of looking for ceiling, so I don't mind him as a VC if you don't have a Sheasel tonight, or a Merritt in that fact. And number 5, I'll go back to my Andy Brayshaw there against St Kilda, just to say that there's potential that he does get a bit of attention from Windhager against St Kilda. So, but we know St Kilda loves to give up points, and his form so at the moment is just unreal. So that is my top 5. I don't think you can go wrong with any of them. Just missing out on my top 5, I've got Nick Dayos at number 6. You can't deny the man's form coming into this round. I think he's averaging something like 120 over the last 5 and 130 over the last 3. It's something ridiculous. Coming up against Geelong, expected to be a pretty decent matchup. Now, Geelong are a bit up and down. Like, they haven't given up a huge amount of points consistently. Like, early seasons, yes, they did, but not recently. So they've only given up 4 scores above 110 so far this year, and that was Jack McRae 153, Josh Dunkley 110, Jai Newcomb 118, and then last week was Paddy Cripps with that 131. So not a huge amount of big ceiling scores. So I'm just expecting a solid sort of 110 from him. Nothing too ridiculous. And I do expect they may have something coming to him, whether that's an O'Connell or an Atkins, that's just going to give him grief all day, not giving him any bit of space. So I'm just a little bit concerned with that tag option. Obviously, he's been dominating the competition as of recent weeks, so I think Geelong are pretty smart and attached to that, so they will have some sort of plan to mitigate him. Number 7, I do have the likes of Dane Zorko. Now, he is up against the Gold Coast Suns. Now, we all sort of remember the game from last year where he went 184, I can imagine, and the 139 last year. So he has a very good average against him in this halfback role. Obviously, he's a little bit down on form recently. That's why he hasn't made my top 5. But I'm expecting a pretty good game from him again this week. In saying that, Gold Coast have been a bit restrictive for halfbackers, particularly those. A little bit better on midfielders, but halfbackers haven't been scoring that great. So that's why he's a little bit down on the list, but I definitely think you could go with him in the final game if you're struggling for options. Number 8, Bailey Smith, pretty straightforward. He's nearly the number 1 averaging player in the competition at the moment, so you have to go with him in the top 10 no matter what. I just think he'll continue on his way as he do, even though the Pies are probably the restrictive club in the competition at the moment for midfielders specifically. So yeah, I just don't think he's going to have the massivest score. Collingwood have only given up one score above 120 so far, and that was a Sam Walsh with a 137 early on in the season. Since then, they've all just been sort of solid 110 to 120, so nothing amazing. Noah Anderson slots in at number... Where's Noah Anderson? How can I find it? Noah Anderson slots in at number 9 against the Brisbane Lions. Brisbane Lions have been a fairly easy matchup as of recently for midfielders, so I'm just expecting Noah Anderson to do quite well. Yes, it's away from home and it is at the Gabba, so he may have a bit of a struggle time, but I have faith that Noah Anderson can go well. His scores haven't been amazing against them previously, with an 85 and a 98. But I think that was a very different Brisbane to what we are experiencing this year, where they are a bit of an easy matchup. You know, we saw the likes of Nasiah Wangan and Malira went 131 last week. Nick Dacos went 131 the week prior to that. We had Bailey Smith go 112 and also Max Holmes go 119. So they are giving up a few points in that midfield. So I think Noah Anderson is the guy to go big in there. And then finally at number 10, I have just older reliable, and that is Jordan Dawson up against the likes of Carlton. Now, Carlton have been restrictive recently, but they did obviously give up a huge amount of points to Bailey Smith last week with a 132. So, if anything, I think Jordan Dawson can do very well. Now, Carlton are a very contested team. They love just 90 sort of ruck contests so that people are always around the ball. And that means good for tacklers, and it also means good for distributors, which that pretty much suits Jordan Dawson, right? So he's going to get probably nearly 10 plus tackles, probably get 30 plus disposals, and maybe even sneaks forward for a goal, and obviously does the marks on the outside as well. So I'm expecting a pretty nice one from Jordan Dawson as well. I guess some apologies that I've got to do. Lockie Whitfield was pretty highly owned in terms of captains. I am seriously concerned with the JJ tag. James Jordan, if you didn't know. I 100% expect it to go to Lockie Whitfield because he is the most damaging player in that halfback role, and I just think they're done with tagging midfielders. So I'm expecting JJ to go to Whitfield there. Rosie against the Western Bulldogs. I just think Western Bulldogs are a tough matchup at the moment, and it is at Mars as well. So that is the Mars Stadium. That is at Ballarat. So yeah, I'm just not expecting huge scores. They're looking at the histories. There's not that many 100+ scores. So I'm not expecting either of those teams to do well. So you know your Liberatoros, your Bontempellis and stuff like that. I don't expect huge scores from them. Petrarca against the Eagles without Oliver could definitely be a pretty fruitful matchup. You know, without Oliver in there, Petrarca definitely becomes the target in the midfield, whether that's attention or just from teammates trying to get it forward. So I'm expecting probably he kicks 3, has 30, and could put up a 120. He just missed out on the top 10 because we really haven't seen that ceiling from him. He had that best 114 last week, but even then, he kicked 2 goals in that. So he really needs to hit the scoreboard to be hitting these big straps. I'm not sure if he has that 130 in the caliber at the moment. So yeah, he just misses out. We've also got Jack McRae just out of there, just with the performance he has at the moment. And besides that, I've left a few of the more unique players like a Newcomb, George Hewitt, and Zach Butters sort of out of the realms just because they're not super unique, even though I do think they could go well. You know, Newcomb against Richmond definitely could go massive, but it didn't serve well last week. He's more of a big game player than actually just destroying these weaker teams. So there's that. But that is my top 5, and that is my top 10. So fingers crossed all your captains go well this week. What my VCs and Cs are going to be this week, I'm probably definitely going to be going Sheasel. into Max Gordon, my number one and two there. So yeah, that's what I'm thinking. As long as I trade in Sheasel at this stage, I've got to figure out what trades I'm going to be doing now that Oliver needs to potentially go. If not, I might keep him. So yeah, all the best, guys. Please leave a like, subscribe, do whatever you need to. I really appreciate all of the lovely feedback that you guys can give me in the comments. Speaking of comments, if you have any questions, drop them in the comment section below or go to my QU link in the description. Besides that, have a great weekend, guys. Enjoy.